Coming up today, South Korea expresses its desire to establish diplomatic ties with Cuba. Seoul hopes better relations with Havana will up the pressure on North Korea. A UN agency says North Korea appears to have reopened a plant to produce plutonium from spent fuel, suggesting Pyongyang is widening its nuclear program. Plus, key parliamentary posts remain unfilled as the 20th National Assembly is set to hold its first session Tuesday. The parties still can't agree on who should take the coveted Assembly Speaker post. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome. It's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, June 7th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to our early morning edition of Arirang News. Our top story this morning, Korea paused to remember its war dead on Monday on its 61st Memorial Day. During a ceremony to commemorate the country's patriotic martyrs and fallen heroes, President Park Geun-hye called for unity and strength in the face of growing threats from North Korea. Song Ji-sun starts us off.
President Park paid tribute to the nation's fallen heroes during her speech on Memorial Day at the Seoul National Cemetery on Monday. She expressed the nation's gratitude to those who fought in the Korean War and those who fought for Korea's independence against Japan's colonization. She also expressed regret for the divided Korean peninsula, saying that North Korea's pursuit of nuclear weapons is the biggest obstacle standing in the way of a unified Korea, posing a threat to regional and global peace. Pointing to North Korea's recent claim of being a nuclear state made at its Workers' Party Congress last month, President Park warned once again that the regime's nuclear and missile development will only lead to further isolation and stronger pressure from the outside world.
정부는 북한이 비핵화의 길을 선택하고 대화의 장으로 나올 때까지 국제사회와 긴밀하게 협력하면서 강력한 제재와 압박을 지속해 나갈 것입니다.
The president pledged to firmly respond to any provocation from the north and vowed to further strengthen the country's defense readiness in alliance with the United States. With representatives from the country's rival political parties present at the ceremony, President Park also issued a call for unity.
국가 안보에는 여야, 지역, 세대의 구분이 있을 수 없습니다. 국민 모두가 하나된 마음으로 힘을 합쳐야만 분단의 역사를 마감하고 한반도의 평화와 통일의 길을 열어갈 수 있습니다.
In her first public appearance since returning from her trip to Africa and France, President Park also pledged to expand benefits for war veterans and secure quality jobs for retired soldiers. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, after a decades-long absence of formal exchanges, Seoul's top diplomat sat down on Monday with his Cuban counterpart in Havana. The talks are viewed as laying the groundwork for better diplomatic relations and putting more pressure on Cuba's old ally, North Korea. Lee Min-young has the details.
South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se met with his Cuban counterpart Bruno Rodriguez in Havana on Monday as part of Seoul's efforts to lay a foundation for improving bilateral ties with the island nation. During the historic talks, Minister Yoon reportedly conveyed Seoul's desire to establish diplomatic ties with Cuba.
We are expecting to maintain close ties with Cuba by continuing talks on various levels, and South Korea is mapping out subsequent consultations with the state on many other issues as well.
Minister Yoon also raised the international concern over North Korea's nuclear ambition, which could add to the growing pressure on North Korea. Although the talks were held in a friendly atmosphere, there was no immediate response from Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez on normalizing diplomatic relations. Experts say that is because of the possible backlash from North Korea, which has maintained close relations with the Caribbean states since 1960. North Korea has recently made efforts to boost ties with Cuba amid the stronger international sanctions on Pyongyang, possibly in a bid to block Seoul's efforts to build relations with Havana. This is the first official bilateral meeting between the two, though they met each other at talks in New York in 2013. It is also the first time a South Korean foreign minister has ever visited the island nation, as Seoul and Havana haven't had any diplomatic relations since the Cuban Revolution in 1959. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Senior diplomats from the United States and China are meeting in Beijing amid rising tensions over North Korea and the South China Sea, two topics that are dominating the latest strategic and economic dialogue between the world's two superpowers. Kim Hae-sung with the details.
The 8th U.S.-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue got underway with an opening address by Chinese President Xi Jinping, who emphasized the importance of cooperation between the two global superpowers.
China and the U.S. need to increase our mutual trust and deepen our coordination on major global and regional issues like climate change, development, the internet, non-proliferation, military, and law enforcement.
The dialogue between the two countries' senior diplomats will focus on three main subjects: North Korea, trade, and South China Sea. A meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and top North Korean diplomat Lee Soo-yong on June 1st took Washington by surprise, and the U.S. is expected to continue pressing China to impose stronger sanctions on the North. Trade is another thorny issue. Just after China's bilateral talks with North Korea last week, the U.S. Commerce Department issued a subpoena to Chinese tech company Huawei Technologies to investigate whether it broke U.S. export controls by trading with North Korea and 4 other countries. This was seen as a warning to China, and experts believe Washington will use similar moves to push for further changes in China's currency controls and curbs on industrial output.
And implementing policies to substantially reduce production in a range of sectors suffering from overcapacity, including steel and aluminum, is critical to the function and stability of international markets.
The tensions surrounding China's buildup of military bases on reclaimed islets in the South China Sea are also likely to dominate the talks. This has become an ever more contentious issue between the two countries, with the U.S. sending warships and aircraft carriers to the region. The security dialogue between U.S. and China has been held every year since 2009 and wraps up on Tuesday. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
The International Atomic Energy Agency says North Korea could have restarted reprocessing spent nuclear fuel to harvest plutonium for nuclear weapons. IAEA Director General Yukiya Amano says satellite evidence shows North Korea has likely resumed activities at its main plant in Yongbyon. He expressed serious concern about the North's nuclear program and said it was deeply regrettable Pyongyang has shown no willingness to comply with the UN Security Council resolution adopted in response to its 4th nuclear test earlier this year. Amano added that the IAEA will continue efforts to reach a peaceful resolution of the nuclear issue and urge North Korea to cooperate with the IAEA and fully comply with their obligations under the Security Council resolutions. South Korea's ruling and opposition parties failed on Monday to reach an agreement over the formation of committees a day before the first special session of the new National Assembly. The ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition Minju Party of Korea have been wrangling over the formation of new committees and especially who will fill the position of National Assembly Speaker ahead of a Tuesday deadline. Rival parties resumed their first talks on the issue in almost a week on Monday, but failed to overcome their differences. They are slated to hold more discussions on Tuesday morning, just a few hours ahead of the session. However, watchers say there's not much chance the parties will reach an agreement, which raises the possibility the deadline will be missed yet again. Now, last week, Hyundai Merchant Marine began clearing some major hurdles to save itself financially. Others in the ailing industry are following suit. Now we turn the spotlight to Hanjin Shipping, Korea's largest container operator by capacity, which has also completed round 1 of its negotiations. Hwang Ho-jun reports.
The finance sector estimates Hanjin Shipping owes $86 million in overdue fees to its charter ships. But the financially struggling company is moving toward paying off that debt and saving Korea's #1 container shipping line. On Monday, Hanjin announced it completed the first round of negotiations to adjust its charter rate. Hanjin is negotiating with ship owners with the help of British law firm Freshfields and stressed negotiations are still in the early stages. The shipping company said it will announce the official results of the first round on Tuesday. Hanjin Shipping drew global attention to its financial situation last month when one of its charter ships was impounded for 3 days in South Africa for unpaid charter fees. It also announced a self-rescue plan last month, which has been accepted by its creditors. The plan secured liquidity of $353 million to pay off the overdue fees. So far, the company secured $112 million by selling equities, company offices, and other assets. The shipping giant was also granted a 3-month suspension on all payments of principal and interest. The question is whether Hanjin will be able to stay committed to the plan and achieve its desired outcome from the current talks on the charter rates. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, robust government investment in startups is, of course, a welcome development for the little guys, taking baby steps towards hopefully a bigger and brighter future. Still, there are holes in its development, namely diversification. For more on a new government programme that aims to tackle that issue, Kwon Jang-ho reports.
The Korean government has spent some $3 billion since 2014 to develop the startup ecosystem, from support funding to innovation hubs and facilities. But one area that hasn't been addressed is diversity.
Silicon Valley, New York, London, Berlin, all of these cities are very cosmopolitan, and the startups within these cities are also, they're global. And I think that this is incredibly powerful asset that startups elsewhere in the world have that at the moment we're not seeing so much of in Korea.
I'm here at the newly built Pangyo Startup Campus just outside of Seoul, which is set to house dozens of Korean startups. But now the government is looking to bring in foreign startups as well, with the launch of the K-Startup Grand Challenge. The program plans to incorporate 40 startups from overseas, among the 200 to be based at the campus. Each company will receive flight tickets, office space, visa support, and a piece of an $833,000 prize pool. It's the first program of its kind, and as well as helping the local economy, it's expected to be a learning opportunity for Korean startups as well.
There have been cases where Korean companies have tried to go global, but failed. To be better prepared, they need to meet other foreign startups and understand the overseas market better.
Critics argue that whereas Silicon Valley grew organically, government programs such as these are too forced and the environments may not work in the long run. But Lee Sang-won, a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur, says it's not a concern for the startups themselves.
The startups need every help they can get, whether it's coming from a government or VC or from private sector. It doesn't really matter, right? As long as we're getting all the help that we can get to make this business successful, that's what we're looking for.
The K-Startup Grand Challenge may only be a small step towards diversifying the Korean startup ecosystem, but it's a step in the right direction to fulfill Korea's ambition to become a leading tech hub in Asia. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Now, Ramadan, a period of prayer, fasting, charity and self-accountability for Muslims, started around the world on Monday, but the month-long observance has been marred by terror attacks around the world. In Kazakhstan, suspected Islamist militants attacked a National Guard base and firearm shops the day before the fasting. 10 people were killed in that shooting, including some of the gunmen. And in Jordan, an unidentified armed man attacked an office in a Palestinian refugee village, killing 5 people. The Islamic State militant group claimed responsibility for the attack in Jordan. Well, those are stories we have for you on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website, arirang.com/news. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Goodbye.